Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on the Sit Rep Podcast. I am your host this evening, Oriskany Jim, and we're going to hopefully put the finishing touches on some armored fighting vehicles, World War II, Cold War, and some modern-ish stuff. And we'll see how we progress. All right, so as we see there in the slide, we've got some SU-100s, some specialized German half-tracks from World War II, and the two Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft guns that Blair Fenning sent me. Those are his 3D prints. When I was complaining that I didn't have a Gepard for my Bundeswehr force before I had a big Bundeswehr-themed game down at the gaming club, he went ahead and sent me not just one, but two. So those are just about done. We might actually be able to finish those tonight. All right, so let's go ahead and kick this pig and go to the camera, go to the hobby desk, and hopefully get at least a couple of these 6 vehicles you see here across the final finish line. All I gotta do now is find my camera. Alrighty. So here are our victims for tonight. These were the same 6 vehicles that we had on last week's stream. Between video production, full-time job, family, life, everything else, I haven't had too much time to work on them, but I have gotten them to where they're more or less ready for final touches. They have gotten, now I was doing tracks before. All the tracks are now done, obviously, along with all the other block painting, I should say. So by that I mean relatively large pieces of gear and detail work, like extra tracks, fuel drums, stowage, like mufflers, things like that. Here is the engineering variant of a German half-track. The inside's all kind of put together, or I should say painted. Little engineering miniature bridge pieces are ready to go. Here is the single-barreled 2-centimeter flak track, as I call it. I think it's a STKF. You know what? I'm not even going to try to remember the number, the actual STKFZ number. It's a smaller German half-track. Oh, it's not even a half-track. It's an actual fully tracked vehicle with a little 2-centimeter flak anti-aircraft gun on there. And we've got, like I was saying before, the Gepards. So it's interesting. We've got like the evolution of German air defense here. This is them back in 1942. This is them in 1982. You've come a long way, baby, as the ads used to say. Don't kick a pig, says Jen. Oh no. All right, so they then got one hell of a pin wash. Pin wash is one of my least favorite things to do. However, it's always worth it because that's what makes the tanks actually pop. And then I got a very light dry brushing. So for once I managed not to over dry brush. And long story short, take your first shot. These vehicles are ready to go for like the last pass. As you guys know, when you're painting an army of vehicles or a batch of vehicles, there's a bunch of stages they go through. We're pretty much ready for the last one. The only one I might not be ready to work on tonight, and we'll see how the stream goes, are these SU-100s. So these are originally Soviet, very end of World War II. These only came into like regimental service in, I think, January 1945 in select guards, separate anti-tank artillery regiments and stuff like that. Self-propelled anti-tank regiments, I should say, SU-100s. They actually found more use, or at least a longer span of use, in certain Soviet client states going into the 50s, 60s, and even 70s. And that's where these guys are going to go. Clearly by their paint job, they're headed for the Middle East. So these guys will see service in the Syrian and especially Egyptian armies, in 56, 67, and maybe even a little bit in 73, if you're careful with your scenario design, your historical research. They were a little long in the tooth by 1973, obviously. They came out in 1945. But believe it or not, some Syrian and Egyptian reserve units were still using these under certain circumstances. But definitely in 56, in fact, these guys participated in the very largest tank battle of 1956, Suez War, Beer Gift Coffee, 2 November 1956. And also quite a few of the battles in 67. So definitely some use for these in Arab-Israeli wars. All right. So the reason these guys might not get done today is I have yet to actually make their Egyptian markings. I don't have actual decal sheets for those. I have to make those by hand. And I didn't have those done yet. I meant to have them done before tonight's stream, but the hour kind of snuck up on me, so we might not get to those today. But we'll still try. So I've got some, we'll start off with the World War II Germans, because they might be the toughest. Only because they're the smallest vehicles. I have some very, very small. I'll be careful to hide the swastikas YouTube. All right. But there are some World War II pattern Balkan crosses that we're going to go ahead and put on there. They come in various sizes on this decal sheet. I think I'll try to use the second smallest one. This almost reminds me of one of those eyeball charts when you go to the optometrist. It's like, how small can you see the little Balkan cross on there? So I'll try to use the second smallest ones. I might wind up using the very smallest ones. I'd rather use the second smallest ones, but we will see. Oh, excuse the reach. You should see me at the dining room table. I'm really rude. And again, we're going to be optimistic. And by that, I mean I'm going to go ahead and cut 4 Balkan crosses off of my sheet and put them in the little jar of water I have here. So I know you guys know what a jar of water looks like, but just so something's happening on the camera. Now the next question, do I have a clean brush? I got off work today on time for a change at 5 p.m. I had 2 hours with which to prepare the stream, so I said, all right, I kind of got it ready a little, and then I was watching some YouTube, and I fell asleep on the couch, and I only woke up like 30 minutes ago. So a lot of my prep time kind of was squandered there. So if some things tonight seem a little rushed or disorganized, I do apologize. It's been tiring, though. Hey, Mark Ritchie. Mark Ritchie, do you recognize some of your refugees? They've been to the Panzer Spa. Let me see if I can get a decent focus going on this. So it looks like, well, someone had painted the Everluden crap out of this before I got it. I don't know if that was Mark or if it was whoever sold them to Mark. So some of the details were overpainted, and in other words, they got rounded off by like a lot of paint. I admit it, I will admit I contributed to that because I did reprime it, I did rebase it, and then I hit it with airbrush after that. So I added like 2.5 layers of paint after this. But what I do like is it looks like either Mark or whoever had it before Mark added a lot of the stowage. And I know that because I have the exact same models from Battlefront and different guns, because the guns come with the kit comes with 2 different guns in the kit, and it's clear that someone has added additional, which I appreciate. I always do that myself. Oh, one more thing. Here is the engineering half-track, which we're going to put some markings on in just a second. I do still have the crewman. Mark, I went ahead and took him off before I repainted the vehicle because his paint job is, good to go. So I'm just going to literally glue him back in place as soon as we're done. And then the little flat track here. So we're going to try and put some Balkan crosses on there first of all, then maybe some tactical numbers, and we'll see where we wind up. It's like a tank overhaul I acquired that way. Yeah, it didn't look like, I've seen lots of your miniatures, Mark. This didn't look like your work. Whoever originally, especially this one, whoever originally painted these just like really laid it on thick. And the only reason I know that is because a lot of my miniatures, especially earlier on, are like that. It's cool. I mean, It's all good. Alright, so the transfers seem to be behaving for a change. Of course, now that I said that, it's gonna not cooperate for me. Alright, now again, these are the second largest, you can probably barely see that. These are the second largest ones, I'm sorry, the second smallest ones on my decal sheet. I'm gonna see if I can squeeze them on here somewhere. You know, I don't know if they go here, but this is where I'm gonna put them. Because this is where they can fit. It's okay, Jim. You can screw up as much as you want. There aren't like, you know, a bunch of people watching. We'll try that again. I'm trying to get it right there in that little gap. And I just ruined that Balkan cross. Alright. I told you I was being optimistic by only cutting 4 off the sheet. We'll try the next one. Alright, it's in place. Just settle down. Let me get to my focus here. Now again, that's really shiny at the moment, but we're going to go ahead and remove that with some matte varnish a little later, but that one looks like it actually behaved itself a little bit. One thing's for sure, no one's fingers are going to touch that because it's right between the little bit of super... Oop, I over fixed my... It's right between this little bit of superstructure there and what looks like the left-hand side muffler. Or the muffler that's on the left-hand front of the vehicle for some reason. Because Germans. Their engineering always makes sense. This one, the muffler's not in the way, so it'll be a little bit easier. I'll have a little bit of an easier time getting it on there. Before I get to that though, I will cut another one of these Balkan crosses off of the sheet, and I will do it off camera because this decal sheet does include some of YouTube's least favorite branding, so to speak, and I don't want to get us demonetized or anything for showcasing hate symbols or whatever. It's World War II history, guys, alright? But this is YouTube we're talking about, so... I said, hopefully this one will be a little easier. He says that, but... Oh, you goddamn... Ooh, I had it and it just lifted off. Ooh, I hate when it does that. Swear to God, it's like you can hear the miniature laughing at you. You thought this transfer was on there. All right, and again, it is shiny and wet at the moment, but dry, and again, we'll take care of that later. All right, so come on, get the focus right. The two Balkan crosses are now on there. I don't even know if I have any tactical numbers small enough for that. You know what? Yeah, I do. That's what I saved this broader piece of plating for. I'll use that for the tactical numbers. All right, and while that dries, I will catch up on Mr. Chat. The stream has stopped for a second, but it's now back. Okay, sorry. And yet still it is just an AA gun on a tracked vehicle. Yeah, it's the same basic idea. The one fundamental difference is that, clearly the difference between these two German generations of air defense. This is on an auxiliary vehicle, clearly. This is a Leopard 1 main battle tank. This thing is huge, especially for an air defense vehicle. Honestly, I think it's a little underpowered in 7 Days to the River Rhine, but that's okay because the Leopard 2s are overpowered. And speaking of Leopard 2, we can go ahead and add the performance of Leopard 2s to item number 716. Oriskany was right in the Ukraine war predictions. Now, granted, that's 700. What did I say? 792. That's out of 804. I did get some things wrong, but everyone was creaming their pants over the Leopard 2s, and I'm like, guys, that it's definitely the right tank to send, because the training requirements and the logistical infrastructure required to support other platforms like the Abrams and the Challenger are just like probably more than Ukraine is going to find convenient or operationally efficient at the moment. So Leopard 2 is older than either of those platforms, or older than either of those tanks. M1A2s I'm talking about, or even M1A1s. It's got a much simpler engine, definitely than the much simpler tank. I'm sorry, much simpler. Where am I going to put this? That's going to be the. I don't usually like putting transfers, like especially national markings, right here, because that's where everyone grabs the model, and it's eventually going to come off, no matter how much matte varnish you put on there. So I'm actually going to tuck it, hopefully, underneath the end of that engineering bridge, or that little engineering span they have there. And wow, that was startlingly easy. Cool. Oriskany rolls a 6 for once. And here's where Mark starts laughing at me. Oriskany, you don't get to complain about your dice anymore. How many boxcars did I roll in that Polish Commonwealth game? I swear to God, I think John and Jen were about ready to go home. Not my girlfriend Jen, a different Jennifer. Yeah, that went on there smooth as butter. That was nice. Both of them. Again, that may not be historically where the marking should go, but when you put things right here on the very sides, or on the, basically where everyone goes to pick up the model, a few hundred of these, and before you know it, someone's wearing your markings on their thumb, and that's always annoying. Again, I do put matte varnish on there, I do coat it, I do seal the model. Nevertheless, I lose a lot of transfers that way. So I try to be careful I try to be careful as far as where I put some of my decals. While that continues to dry, I will continue to catch up on Mr. Chat. Rasmus says reports are seeing T-54s in this day and age. Yeah, there are T-54s in use. Now, one thing to be careful, people say, oh, look what the Russians are using now. Well, look what the Russians are using here. Look at this tired, T-54s with 57 millimeter anti-aircraft guns and an open mantlet, almost like this. This thing I'm not showing on camera. Yeah, we do got to be careful though. That a lot of that is stuff that they're giving to their separatist allies, as opposed to actual formal, Russian Federation units. So there's, like in Vietnam, we wouldn't exactly give the South Vietnamese our very best stuff. In Afghanistan, we didn't give the Afghan army all of our best stuff. I know when we left Afghanistan, we left a lot of stuff behind, a lot of crap that we weren't using anymore. Why did we give it to the Afghans in the first place? But I'm not going to open up that can of worms. Thanks very much, Mark, for coming out. Oh no! John just stuck a plywood base to his finger. Yep. I had in fact, I think I still have a little piece of it. Did I finally shed it? I had a piece of that first Balkan cross on my thumbnail, it wouldn't come off. If only it had stuck to the model as well as it stuck to my thumbnail. Okay. So clearly, as we switch to the Bundeswehr for our Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft guns, we clearly have to shift to a different version of the German cross. And we go to these much more modern looking ones. These are also from Battlefront. These are leftovers from my old Martyr kits and Leopard 2s. So I'll be able to use those and those white tactical numbers that you probably can't quite read. I will cut off four of these. Oof. I don't have that many of these left. I better be careful. You know what I'll also do? I'll also get rid of these little paper bits. And they're in my cup because these things will just get cluttered up and confused and tangled up with my decals. Or transfers, or whatever the technical term is. In case there are any purists in the chat. Jen Lemon says that decals suck. They're fine if they're great once they get put on the miniature. Then they actually make it look pretty awesome. They can be a pain in the ass though. You gotta be a little patient with them. I will say this. I know everyone saves, their so-called bits box and so on. Oops. I have a bits bag of decals. Some of these, there's another piece of YouTube hate bait there, sorry. I've got a whole bag of, from all kinds of nationalities and periods. I've even got some Ghost Bear Battletech, if you can barely see that. So yeah, I save every decal I have because you're going to need it eventually. And to your point, and what I'm talking about here is, decals suck, decals are hard. If it's okay if you save all your decals and you have a lot of extra, because you will mess up a couple, and nothing's worse than you need exactly 4 of a certain decal. Like here I'm doing 2 Gepards, and I want a German Iron Cross on either side, a Bundeswehr cross on either side. If I only had 4 of them, it would be a lot more stressful. Fortunately, it looks like I have 10, so I can screw some of these up and they'll be okay. Only trying freehand is worse. I've had some success with freehand. Then again, I used to kind of, well, I still am, but more traditional kind of, I won't say artist, but painter. So those markings there on the bore evacuator are freehand, and these symbols here are Iraqi freehand. Now I did print Iraqi flags on a laserjet printer and on very, very thin typing paper and just like laid them on there. But like the shine off of that headlight, or searchlight I should say, is freehand. And again, the Arabic script is freehand. Which doesn't look that, it really isn't that impressive. But the hard part for me was getting those two symbols to look exactly the same on like 15 vehicles. Excuse me. On like 15 vehicles. So that's 15 times 2. You have to do the exact same thing 30 times and have it look like it's not freehand. Luckily, it's a pretty simple design, and there's a lot of things that aren't holding up well with old Oriskany Gem, but I do still have a pretty steady hand when it comes to pencil and or paintbrush. A lot of my pin washing, I should confess, is not done with a brush. It is done with one of my little secret weapons, these little brush pens. So we have a set of about 20 of these brush pens that come in different colors. This is kind of a medium brown. And you gotta be goddamn careful, because you can't wash this stuff off like you can acrylic paint. You can get some of these very long and straight lines to come out nice and crisp. Whereas if you tried to pin wash that with an actual brush, I've done it on other vehicles like my M1 Abrams, but it's friggin' hard. Here, it's just a lot easier, especially when you're building large armies. All right, so hopefully these Bundeswehr crosses have soaked enough. I am going to go for the, I can take the turret off for this. I'm going to go for these spaces here underneath the guns. Is where I've seen them in a lot of photographs, leaving these places here on the port and starboard quarter, if I'm going to use a nautical term, which I really shouldn't, for the tactical numbers. Because the tactical numbers on this sheet are pretty big. And I want to make sure I have plenty of space. The glare is probably too much. You guys probably couldn't see that. You'll see it when I put the models on there. Sitting here is not a bad start to a 4-day weekend. Nice. I do not have a 4-day weekend this weekend. I have a 6-day weekend coming up next week. Okay, they are not coming off of the paper. At least not easily. Then again, these decals I think are about 6 years old. I think I bought these with my very first Leopard 2s and Martyrs, which was 2016, so 6.5 years. It was October 2016 I bought those. I only remember that because I won my very first golden button for my Leopard 2s, and I remember I found out when I was in a hotel celebrating my birthday that year down at Fort Lauderdale Beach. Try to contain your jealousy. Mark's like, jealous for what? We live in the shittiest place in the country. Mark lives down near me in South Florida. And we are now entering the crappiest 3 months of living in this part of the country. 95-degree heat every single day, 100% humidity, thunderstorms. And you learn to thank God for the thunderstorms. It's the only thing that keeps from getting to like 100, 110. And you start dodging hurricanes. We are already keeping an eye on our first named storm of the season. It's not even out of June yet. And we already have Tropical Storm Brett down there somewhere. Fortunately, he's not coming anywhere near us. But when they're naming storms, and it's Brett, so technically, B, but it's the second storm of the year. I don't even know what the first one was. And it's not even out of June yet. It's going to be a long summer. I'm going to be checking that stupid website, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA website, for the next like 4 months. Hoping there's no news. I mean, the other 9 months living down here in South Florida are great. It's just, here come those shitty 3 ones. Okay, it's in place, but not well. That's not going to stay on there, I can promise you. That is... Oh, I see what's going on. Shit. There's a bit of a gap there in the 3D print. Fuck, that might not work. There ain't no way that's gonna stay on there. Okay, I gotta think what I'm gonna do with that. Because that's I know you guys can't see what I'm talking about, but that is not gonna work. Ain't no way, son. There is like an unintentional groove there in the 3D print. You guys can see that, and it's cocking up the am I over focusing there? Yeah, that is not gonna lie on there. I honestly am not sure what I'm gonna do with that. I guess I can try to gap fill it or something, but I don't know. That's gonna be tough. But let me take that cross off there, because there's no way that's gonna fit in there the way. Put it back in the water so it doesn't get ruined. All right, I'm gonna come back to that one. I might have to do that one off camera. Does this one have the same problem? That face looks fine. That face has the same problem. All right, well, I'm gonna put these two on here. Like, that's what it's supposed to look like. And I might come back to that one off camera later. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that. That's gonna be a bit of a problem. Like, that one's on there smooth as glass. Yikes. Ooh. I'm gonna have to figure something out there. All right, I won't dwell on it. But that's going to be an issue a little bit later. All right, let's see if I can get some tactical numbers on there. I did learn the brush pen trick around here. Awesome. I mean, I've literally learned everything I know about painting. I only started painting miniatures about, let's see, when did I... I'm trying not to have this be too 40 something. Oh, the hell with it. All right, here we go. I'm trying to pick out what numbers I have, out of what numbers I have left. Making sure you have two of the same number, because obviously the numbers on the two sides have to be the same. Yeah, I only started painting miniatures in 2014. I joined what was then Beasts of War on March 18th, 2014. And when I was kind of first screwing around with, back then, as a gateway drug, so to speak, I was trying to get people at a different club that has since closed down to play Axis and Allies 15mm miniatures. Axis and Allies, I'm not talking about the board game. There used to be a 15mm hybrid hex and miniatures tactical game that was like, it was kind of a joke. But it was a cool game to kind of get people into the hobby. So I would set up a table with that at the club, and because of its visual aspect, people would come by and ask about it. And then out of those initial students, I would, out of every 10 or so, I would get like one Panzer Leader player. So that was the idea. And then before you knew it, I was into miniatures for real. But, still a relative newcomer. The boxcars, out of 4 rolls, I think there were 10. Yeah. I hope you rewarded those dice. Those dice need to reward me once in a while, man. The amount of RPGs I put into Mark's berms and shit. I mean, to be fair, they didn't deploy their forces terribly well. And it was the first time I had played that system, but even like some basic tactical fundamentals, if you have the high mobility army and you're on the attack, you concentrate your force on one or the other of the enemy's wings. And the way the board was set up, it wasn't like a straight on shot, it was more of a diagonal. There's no reason to hit the forward diagonal and echelon your way all the way down the line. So there's literally one choice. Also, the victory conditions of that scenario demanded that I clear an entire road that, again, ran the diagonal of an 8x6 table. So, if you're the defender, why would you try and defend the whole length of the road? You only have to defend a small part of it. And if you're up against a higher mobility force, mass your shit together. What do you do when you're facing cavalry? You form square, right? When you're facing an army that is more mobile than you are, you circle the wagons. They went to defend the whole road. I concentrated all my force against about a third of their force, achieved local superiority, hit them very, 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 very hard, and they did recover. It was a well-fought game, but like the first 2 turns, I built up such a lead of kills that they just weren't going to recover. That game was lost before it started. That said, rolling boxcars like 6 times in the game didn't hurt. So if the dice had been more equal, I would have won that game 21-10, 21-12, 21-15, instead of 21-4. I mean, it turned into a rout. Because, tactics were compounded by some absurdly lucky dice rolling. I certainly won't deny the luck of those dice. I'm not one of those players that, you all know, because, we all know at least one person like that. Probably more like a dozen. Or, when they win, it's all down to their tactics and their strategic acumen. And when they lose, it's all down to the dice. Or the scenario wasn't fair to begin with. In this game, I do honestly believe it was a combination of them both. Now I just need to get lucky with this goddamn nut. Oh my god. Phew. There we go, finally. Now if I can just get it aligned without tearing it. Nice. I'll admit, that one was tough. And it's not like the Hungarians in that game weren't also rolling boxcars. They were just rolling boxcars on morale checks. I was rolling them on attack rolls. So that's one of those game designs where you want to roll boxcars in some situations. In some situations, you absolutely don't. And yeah, luck totally did play a factor in the scale of the victory. I will freely admit that. I deserved to win that game. I didn't deserve to win it that bad. Which means I'm probably going to get pasted in Sicily in a couple days. The law of averages says that John might wind up crushing me in Mark's next game. Come on, number 243, lay on there nice and smooth. Nice. I wonder if it's not too late. So what I'm trying to do, or at least I'm investigating the possibility of, no, that's going to look dumb. I'm trying to find another place I can put these Balkan crosses. Because there's no place to put them on the hull. The hull has got way too much engineering equipment, tools, stowage. There's nowhere I can put any decals on the... Again, super shiny because it is wet, and I haven't put the matte varnish on there yet. Like, I'm going to try and catch the maximum shine here. It turns into a lightsaber when it's hit just right. Of course, now I can't get it intentionally. There we go. But it's not going to look like that at the end of the process. But we do have 243 on both sides. They are in slightly different places, which is not ideal. But again, there is a big groove of some kind for some reason down the right-hand side of the turret. It's some effect of the 3D print. So I'm just having to kind of work around that. I mean, it's no big deal. I mean, for the price I paid for these miniatures, $0.00. Blair wouldn't even let me cover the shipping. I am certainly not going to complain. I'm just explaining why I'm putting some of these transfers where I am. Because there is a feature in the print that I have to kind of work around. But again, by no means am I complaining at all. It's just explaining why I'm doing things a certain way. Sometimes the dice are just hot. Happy anniversary, Mr. Rasmus. You and your wife. Tanks use a lot of nautical terms like deck, etc. Yeah, but that only really applies when you're playing the T-35. The tank that literally has a broadside. If you haven't seen that Barbarossa game that Mark ran for us, I got to play actually two. I only have one T-35, so I had brought mine to kind of trade in, and then I played one of his. So I had two T-35s in my force, and there was one point where all my forward guns were knocked out. I literally felt like I was playing Jutland or Darkstar or something, where my tank literally had to present port broadside so I can bring my aft turrets to bear. It was great. It was marvelous. Okay, I meant to have these guys soaking all this time, so that's my bad. Because these are old transfers and they are taking forever to soak to the point where the actual transfer will come off of the paper backing. Come on out of there, you. So a wise man, instead of bragging about his dice, would have had those soaking all that time, so he wouldn't have to stop them. Alright, so while we're waiting for that, I will try to find some tactical numbers I can maybe put on these. Actually, they don't really have tactical numbers on the rest of my... I'm looking at the rest of my Iraqi/Egyptian forces. I just have to make some flags. I don't know if I can do that on camera. I can give it a shot. You guys won't be too bored. T.S. Arlene was like the 2nd of June. Tropical Storm Arlene. Okay. Gotcha. Well, I figured there had to be an A because we're already on Brett. I just missed the A. And then you did the same on Beasts of War and ended with Panzer Leader players like yours truly. This is very true. In fact, thanks very much for bringing that up, Rasmus. So while I'm waiting for these decals to finish soaking here, and I'll see what kind of pens I have handy to just maybe try making Egyptian flags. No promises on this, but I'm going to give it a whirl. But while we're waiting for that, our production schedule coming up. Holy crap, is there a lot of stuff coming up. I'm actually really not kidding. Okay, so I am taking about a week off, starting right after this stream. Don't kid yourself. I will be working my proverbial various anatomy parts off. Okay, that's not going to work. Getting stuff ready. So what's going to happen is July 1st, which is a Saturday, I am running a very, very large tank battle. Here we go. Black and red, that's what you need for an Egyptian flag. A very, very large tank battle at Dust Creek House. Hopefully John will be there as well. Hopefully some other people. I think Jen's going to be there. It's going to be very, very simple. I promised everyone in the club that I would have that rule set down to where it would fit on half a sheet of paper. That is complete. I'm going to proofread it once more before I go to the printers, but that game has been designed, it fits on half a sheet of paper. No more super complicated. Battle Group is not super complicated. It's just, if you're not used to that kind of game, it can feel that way. And it's definitely too complicated for a game that size. That part's my fault. Trying to run a game too big for the system. So, yeah, basically we're going for the absolute largest tank battle we possibly can. Meanwhile, later that same day, or very, very early the next morning, like 5 minutes after midnight on June 2nd, or July 2nd, starts our official 80th anniversary of the Battle of Kursk coverage. There's like 5 videos already in the can. And they're going to be coming out like every 3 days for the majority of June. I keep calling it June, the majority of July. So Cherkeskoye, that monster game that's already been played, already filmed, those first 2 parts are done. Those are coming out on Sunday the 2nd and then Wednesday the 5th. The second part of Cherkeskoye will land on the exact 80th anniversary of the Battle of Kursk, 5 July 1943. Immediately after that, it's going to be like Friday. It's going to be, this is what got me onto it. It's going to be a small Panzer Leader game, or Panzer Blitz, technically. Excuse me. Großdeutschland Division versus 6th Tank Corps, 3rd Mechanized Corps at Verkopenie in Srcevo. This battle takes place on 8 July 1943. That's going to come out on Friday. On that Sunday, I mean, this is like 4 pieces of content in 1 week. Boom, we come up with a game that Mark ran for us in 15mm at Paneri. And then the Wednesday after that is going to be July 12th. That is going to be part 1 of Prokhorovka. That's going to land on the exact 80th anniversary of what's still pretty much considered the largest tank battle in human history. Prokhorovka, that's going to be on 8 July, and then part 2 is going to be on the following Sunday. I think that's something like 16th July. I could be off by a day or two there. And then we're going to pause. So yeah, it's the 16th. Between the 2nd and the 16th is going to be 2 weeks of solid Kursk content, like every 3 days. You guys are going to be getting hit with something. I realize we're hitting it very, very hard, but this is, quite frankly, the most important military event the SitRep podcast will ever cover. Because we're probably not going to still be doing this 20 years from now when it comes to the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Kursk. I'll be 71 by that time. It's 6 to 5 and pick 'em whether or not I'm still going to be here drawing breath at that point. But no other battle comes close. I mean, just in sheer scale. So we're going to hit it really, really hard. Long story short, take your second shot. Then we're going to switch gears a little bit and hit Sicily. That's going to be on the next 2 Sundays. And then in August, we're going to go back to Kursk because the Battle of Kursk does extend into into August, and we're going to do some 80th anniversary stuff. That's some more Panzer content with me and Pyotr. That's already been recorded and it's in the can, and we will keep working on that as we go. So all in all, there's going to be like 8 pieces of Kursk content, at least 2, possibly 3 pieces of Sicily content. Like I've been saying, July of 1943 is a very busy time, a very busy month in World War II. And no mistake. John says, don't mention Sicily. I'm still smarting after watching Stuart after Stuart blew up in the last Sicily scenario. Dude, you guys blew up an entire Stuart platoon in one fire phase, a platoon with those Panthers. Panther versus M3 Stuart. Granted, they were Lend-Lease Stuarts under Russian command. But, yeah, who's going to walk away from that get together? Oh man, there's not a lot of ink left in these. That might just be enough. You know what? That's going to be good enough. These are supposed to be somewhat older tanks, a little bit draggled. I'll shake these pens up, and I'll see if I can get a little bit better ink out of them than that. That's not great. I'm trying to hand draw, air quotes, my own Egyptian flags. Actually, they won't really technically be Egyptian flags. They will be semi-generic Arab nation flags. Red on top, white in the middle, black on the bottom. That can serve for Iraq, Syria, or Egypt. Those are the 3 main countries you need in a Arab-Israeli war setting. You could add Jordan to the list, but Jordan, the flag, does look a lot different. However, with Jordanian Army, Royal Jordanian Army, you're using very, very different equipment. They do not follow the Russian T-55, kind of a breakdown. They are a much more older Centurions. They're much more British. Even some American stuff. Whoa! Good grief. Yeah, that made a difference. In fact, I may have broken the pen. Look at that. Ah! Where's a paper towel? I broke the pen. What weekend is the crazy big Prokhorovka game? Yeah, we are playing that on Saturday, July 1st. The videos will come out on the 12th and 16th. is the short version. It didn't quite work as well with the black, so I will use a different pen for that. And that is what they call good enough. Now I just have to get ridiculously careful with my razor. Herb-a-derp-ish-merpy-derp, which I can't not find. Where is my razor? Excuse my reach. Oh. Ooh. What did I say about being ridiculously careful? Alright, this might be salvageable. New razor blades. Nothing like a brand new blade in your razor. Or technically in your knife. The blade is the razor. No, that's not blood. That's my red pen blew up on me. That was the size piece I cut off. I don't even know if that's coming out on camera. Yeah, it is. Alright. So clearly what I'm going for here is a very simple red, white, and black kind of a stripe pattern. And then I just cut segments off of it and glue them on the tank. Make sure the red is on top. And those are my Egyptian flags, approximately. Come on and flip over. God, that is annoying. Yeah, there's still a little bit that has to come off this. I gotta take my glasses off for this action. Okay, there's one. There's two. They almost look German. Like old imperialist. Ugh! That P sent one of my flags flying. sorry if my big melon... No, it's not. I'm making sure my head doesn't get into the camera, but I really got to get close to this stuff. Just for a second. Alright, there are my 5, because I made one extra, Egyptian flags. Or again, generic Arab army flags. So back in the day, it's not really true now, an Egyptian flag, this is still true, the Egyptian flag has a golden eagle in the center of that red, white, and black banding. A Syrian flag has 2 green stars, and the Iraqi flag used to have 3 green stars. Now the Iraqi center of the flag is something a little bit different. I think there's still three stars, but then there's some actual Arabic script in there as well. But on this scale, you wouldn't be able to see it anyway. Not sure, the smoke still hasn't cleared, says Mark. That was a blast. Germans reached an objective but fell short on objectives, obstacles and wires on the other side. It was a tough game from the German perspective. Yeah, we kind of go over some things that went wrong. We're kind of spoiling how the game turns out. We probably shouldn't do that. But, I mean, it was Kursk. This is the unstoppable force hitting the immovable object. So, yeah, we do talk about it. The Germans do, however, do better in some of the other games in the series. So, and I'm pretty sure that, well, I haven't run the Verkopenie game yet. I'm running that tomorrow and, what's tomorrow? Thursday? Tomorrow and Friday, probably cutting the video together on Friday and Sunday. Sorry, Saturday and Sunday. So that'll be interesting. Alright, this goes on there with super glue. Yeah, the Curse game will be about that same size. It will be like 1/5 the complexity. Not only because we're trying to run simpler games that people can get more into, but to be honest, Prokhorovka was a simpler battle. Prokhorovka was just a lot of tanks. The only kind of additional arms that you would see, when I say tanks, I mean tanks, assault guns, tank destroyers, armored fighting vehicles. The artillery never really got into it. Neither side really had a lot of artillery to bring to bear. They were too far to the rear on both sides, especially the Soviet side. It was. Sometimes people call it like the king of all media engagements. It really wasn't. It was more like a hasty Soviet attack against a very, very hasty German defense. So there really won't be any field fortifications. There were some slit trenches in certain places like Hill 252. So we will have some German slit trenches for some of their Panzer Grenadiers. But no big anti-tank gun nests. Definitely no air power. Both sides had huge air fleets at Prokhorovka. They desperately wanted to get into the action. The problem was they couldn't. They couldn't see. The two armies clashed and at such close proximity and at such speed that they lost sight of the battlefield. So much dust got thrown up that nobody could see. And so the air forces on both sides had no choice but to turn on each other. So while this mother of all tank battles is going on down in the dusty steppe, there's a huge air battle of almost equal size going on right over their heads. And neither side could see what was going on either above or beneath them. And tankers are talking about it, and some of the accounts. And just out of nowhere, a Messerschmitt, a Focke-Wulf, a Stuka or Sturmovik, a MiG just falls out of the sky. It just blows up in the grass right next to him. There is this huge air battle going on over top of us that we can't see. Absolutely apocalyptic. Crazy shit. Alright, now these I gotta be really careful because these are handmade decals, air quotes. And so they're not going on there with water, going on there with super glue. So bear with me as I make sure these are going on there the right way around. Red goes on top. And there is the first piece of Egyptian national markings on there. So not only am I endeavoring to run a simpler game, to make it a little bit more user-friendly, especially for new players, but like I said, it's actually a simpler battle. Less support arms. It's much more of just a armored fighting vehicle brawl. Not entirely. The myth of Prokhorovka does need to be popped a little as far as its size. I mean, it was huge. It wasn't just quite as huge as a lot of people say it is. And it wasn't really a big clash, like a big meeting engagement. That one went on a little crooked. Come on, budge, budge, budge. Shit. Hold on, guys. This one might have to get redone. Problem is, it's super glue. There's not really any second chances. Yep, that one did not quite go on there right. All right. Let's see if we can take two. It clearly does damage the face of the model and the tank a little bit, but fortunately, you're going to put something right over top of it. So. Here we go with attempt number 2. Try to make sure it goes on there straight this time. Much better. There we go. Oriskany Jim with the save. Now, again, I did use up my extra. Well, I could probably still save this one. That's why you make at least one extra whenever you're making this stuff by hand. That one went on there perfect. Okay, so the vehicles that I thought might not get done today actually did get done. Because a lot of these guys, at least none of my existing, either, again, Iraqi or Egyptian models, I don't really put tactical numbers on them. I might put like I don't really have the research for that. If you see these guys on the table at a later date, you might see a band of color, like right there around the gun barrel somewhere. A little bit like these guys. Now these guys have it there on the bore evacuator. Oh, actually these ones don't. Hold on. These guys do. Come here, you. So there's a green one, there's a brown one, there's a yellow one. Those are actual historical Iraqi platoon markings. So all the brown tanks say would belong to one platoon, and the white stripe denotes the platoon leader. And then the next platoon say that bore evacuator is painted like an olive drab green, and the white stripe is the platoon leader, and so on. And those Arabic markings are historically accurate for a 1991 Gulf War tank. And again, there you can barely see let me get the focus really on there. You can see the 3 green stars. That's clearly an Iraqi flag. Now, at 15 mil, does anyone really care? I can put these guys on the table. In fact, I have put these guys on the table as Egyptians, and nobody's minded. Nobody's commented, no one's noticed. Because at 2 feet, you can barely see those little green dots. They actually are stars. But man, you have to like really zoom in. The camera doesn't even get that intense to really be able to tell that they're actually 5-point stars. But I promise they are. Okay, so those can go back on the shelf. I have an exploded red pen. I know I was messing around with a razor, and then I go on the camera and my hands are covered with red. That's a pen that blew up. I did not slash myself open. So, long story short, take your third shot. I'm going to leave these SU-100s alone for now. These guys are officially done. The only thing they might get, one of them might get a commander. And I'll literally just take like a temporary commander and just stick him on the turret. Those guys are tabletop ready, Oriskany gym level, standard, they're ready to go. These guys, I'm going to hold off because I do have to paint a lot of engineering equipment on there. There's a lot of tools and shovels and picks and axes and stuff like that. I want to paint on them. I want to do a pretty good job on that. And again, there is a groove there in the 3D print that runs along the right-hand side of the turret that I'm not exactly sure what that's about. And it is going to obstruct where I put the other German cross. So I'm going to have to fill that in with something and then probably paint it and then put the decal over that. That's going to be a bitch of a job. And I will not subject you guys to that. I'll tell you what I will do though. I will still put the tactical numbers on the back of on the bustle of this turret. I can definitely do that because I think by now they have been soaking long enough. They've been in there for quite a while. I will catch up on Mr. Chat again. To answer your question, Mark, there were things that the German players could have done. I'm not trying to, what's the word? Critique or criticize like the German play. John and Jim are both very experienced gamers. They might not be that experienced with Battle Group, but there were some things that could have been done a little differently, and we go over that in the video. But they were also up against a good Soviet defense, so hey. Only off from live streaming. Oh yeah, when I take an actual no, it's not off from live streaming. It's yeah, I'm gonna be quiet for about 2 weeks as I get the last of this curse content put together. Jen says even I can play it. Yeah, we're talking about the curse game coming up. Most of my Soviet armor died, probably 25 tanks. Absolutely. That was, and again, this all gets talked about in the video, where it's when it comes down to a tank battle, the Germans are going to win every time. Because you've got M3 Lees and M3 Stuarts up against Tigers and Panthers. Who's walking away from that get-together? I mean, that meeting is going to be equal parts short and unpleasant. However, Kursk was not a tank battle. Kursk is history's largest tank battle. No, Prokhorovka was history's largest tank battle. Kursk was a battle of infantry, engineers, and aircraft up against Soviet infantry, minefields, and emplaced anti-tank guns. I've done head swaps in 15mm. Oh yeah, John did say something earlier about he must be going crazy. I'm not going to be able to find it. Plywood base. Don't mention Sicily. I must be mad, says John Sowerby, doing head swaps on 10mm figures just to get some variation in big men command figures. 10 mil, man. Good grief. I've got some 10 mil infantry. I can see that they have a head. What features are you trying to distinguish? Like some of the headgear? Like if some of them are wearing like barracks covers, some of them are wearing forge caps, some of them are wearing helmets. Other than that, I'm not sure what kind of distinguishing marks you can even see in an infantry head at 10mm. These are for originally a science fiction game called Drop Zone Commander. I was using them for BattleTech for a while, which is really played in 6mm, but that's good enough. Yeah, I don't know what kind of distinguishing features you can see in the heads on miniatures that small. But hey, no one can fault your attention to detail, John, so good to go. Can't wait to see the video, says Mark. It's a huge game, and I never went to the other side of the table for that perspective. Yeah, again, we won't talk about the outcome or like why the table turned out the way it did. Again, we do go over that in the video. It was still a good game, don't get me wrong, but some of it was my fault for trying to run a battle group game that size. It was a 2,700 point game. And of course, we were playing like battle group light. Very, very light. All kinds of rules taken out. Other rules sort of rounded off, simplified, made it a little bit easier and generic. And it still worked, but there were some things I wish had gone just a little different on that. But then again, I mean, it was like 4 times the size of what a large battle group game should be. Battle group games run from 300 to 800 points, maybe? Question mark? And anything over like 600, 700, 800 points is considered a large, is considered a large game. We did 2,700. So clearly some of that's my fault. Probably most of it. I've done head swaps in 15, step back from the ledge. Rasmus says, nope, only 28 mil or even 20 when I do head swaps. I have done some 28mm where we, it's not really head swap, it's more like head choice. You have to put the guys together. These are old warlord figures for bolt action. It was gifted to me. I helped run their, a big bolt action event. And at the end of the event, they gave me like $400 worth of miniatures. I'm like, for free. I was like, holy shit, guys, thanks. I didn't kind of have the heart to tell them I don't work with or play in 28mm. But again, to not do it would be kind of a spit in the face. So I definitely built that army. And they do look great. I wasn't even terribly experienced with 28mm. I should put them on camera one of these days. But it's not really my cup of tea, but I did really enjoy painting them. I enjoyed getting down and painting the red, white, and black on a German Knight's Cross around his neck in 28mm. It does get that serious. And of course on a 28mm figure, it's tiny on 28mm. On 15mm you would never ever see that. So they seriously call it a bustle? Who would have thought a tank in the 19th century women's fashion has anything in common? Yeah. Because it's literally a bustle. Picture like a woman's dress. The ass part of the dress that kind of swings around behind you. That's literally the bustle. They totally call it a turret bustle. No. We're not going to get into what they call the up-armored T-72s. As long as we're talking about women's anatomy. So this is a T-55. So, I get it. But they added a lot more armor on the front of the tank because most tanks are going to get hit from the front. So the gun is here, and the mechanics for the gun, the recoil, the mantlet, the gun braces, the recoil tubes, the loading mechanism, the breech block, all that stuff extends deep into the turret, so they can't really mess with that. So what do they wind up with on the T-72B? A giant hump of armor that comes out on the left side and a giant hump of armor that comes out on the right side. The military called it the Dolly Parton variant because, you know, they're not poets. But yeah, the glacis, the running boards, the engine deck, the turret face, the turret sides, and yeah, the back of the turret is usually called the turret bustle, especially if it swings around like way behind the axis of rotation as we see here. It took a forge cap to replace the stall helm. Okay, that's what I figured. If you're replacing headgear, there's definitely a noticeable difference between a forge cap and a World War I steel helmet on Germans. Alright, so let me try and put these two tactical numbers on here, and then we will probably wrap up the stream. We've been up about an hour and a half. And these two are done. I'll see if I have any tactical numbers small enough for these bad boys. I'm sure I do. I'll have to clutter around in my little bits box and see what I've got. Again, I would finish these Gepards, but I got to figure out what to do with that groove piece on the turret face. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to handle that. That's going to be tough. I might just put it on like a piece of cardstock. Maybe I'll do it that way. I'll figure it out. But in the meantime, I won't bore you guys with it. Okay, yeah, it's coming right off now because it's been soaking for like half an hour. You do want to put the number on right side up, Mr. Jim. Come on now. So again, definitely want to thank Blair for sending me these Bundeswehr air defense vehicles, these Gepards. Again, the price was right. He wouldn't even let me cover the postage. I know everyone likes the chonky Gepard, but no, he wasn't right. He had his day on the table. My little scratch-built Gepard. He worked for one day. I still got to figure out what I'm going to do with that hull. I don't know what I'm going to do with the turret. I mean, the turret's literally just scratch-built junk. I'll probably just throw it out. Who knows? Maybe I'll keep him. He'll be the official mascot of the... No, I don't think so. I think... what's his name? Fred the Tree? Or Frank? What's his name? Martin's Tree is the official mascot of the SitRep podcast. It's either Fred the Tree or Chonky Gepard. It's going to be one of those two. Okay, that clearly didn't go on the right place. Oh, give me a break, will you please? Just once. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I've had a lot of things go right tonight. This just hasn't been one of them. But there is the save. So what I might wind up doing is just making a tiny little piece of cardstock or something and putting the German cross directly on that, somehow painting it as best I can to match the green of the of the actual vehicle, and literally just pasting that whole miniature assembly right over top of that little Death Star groove there. That right there is what's causing the problem. That goes in about, I don't know, like a 32nd of an inch, a 64th of an inch. It's just enough to where there's no way in hell a decal is going to sit in there correctly. So I will figure that out off camera and post our results on our Discord. In case anyone doesn't know, SitRep Podcast does have a Discord. You will find an auto-accept invitation link to our Discord in the description of this video. Click on the link, join the community, show us what's happening on your hobby table. Do I have that spiel practiced enough now? That sounds pretty smooth, doesn't it? Smash that like button. Alright, let me see if I have any small enough tactical numbers. Hide the swastikas before YouTube crucifies me. There was a thing called World War II, YouTube. Fucking deal with it. Alright, I don't know if I have any small enough numbers. American, Africa Corps. The hell is all that? Nope, that's like 28 mil decals. That's way too big. That ain't gonna work. The hell are those? Jeez, I can't even read them. Individual numbers. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not that crazy. I'm not John Sowerby level crazy. Swapping heads on 10mm figures. That's nuts. Those are way too big. Way too big. Way too big. Way too big. Yeah, individual, like, single-digit numbers. Make your own numbers, man. It'll be cool. You're nuts. Possibility, although I hope I don't have to go that crazy. Would that fit on there? Barely. Crap, that might be my best option. No, I've got smaller numbers in here. I just have to find them. Soviet stars, that's not going to work. SS insignia, that's not going to work. Divisional insignia, 2nd SS Panzer Corps, that's not going to work. Okay, here are some really small numbers. I'm going to use those. Alright, I will clean this mess up here. By that, I mean just shovel it off camera so you guys aren't looking at it. Oh, oof. Yeah, so that is some... Let's see if I can get those in focus. Those are some absurdly small numbers. Even those are... Oh, there's some triple-digit numbers. That top row right there. Those are ridiculously small. So those will probably fit on these very small surfaces I have available on these German half-tracks. Let's make it happen. And we'll close out the stream. While I check out Mr. Chat as well. Jen says she would be cross-eyed even for trying that. Well, yep. Oh, for God's sake. None of these numbers match. I have to find the corresponding sheet. That's really annoying. I mean, that's super annoying. Hopefully I can find it. Found it. That's a bitchy move. None of these numbers on these on these number sheets are the same. 200, 201, 202, 203. You have to go to the other sheet and cut the same number out from that one. So if you lose one of the two sheets, you're kind of screwed. Fortunately, I still have it. I found it. We're going to go with numbers, just for fun. They're the next two numbers on this sheet. I don't really care. Now, German tactical numbers do mean something. I'm just not going to get super into it. It's pretty simple. It's company, platoon, and vehicle. So numbers like 117 and 118 sound a little unlikely, but like I said, I don't care. First company, first platoon, 8th vehicle. There usually weren't 8 vehicles in a platoon. How's that for a large number? But there is an age-old historical anecdote that kind of covers that. It's called Who Gives a Damn? And that is what we are going to apply today. Okay, 117 is in the drink. Here comes the other 117. Also in the drink. Alright, I will go ahead and, because I'm going to lose them if I don't, put in both of the 118s as well so that they are soaking while I struggle with the 117s. Yeah, so what we're doing with that Prokhorovka game is I'm bringing down pretty much all the tanks I have that could possibly fit in that battle. Pretty much mid-war Mark IVs, so F2s and Gs really. No Mark V Panthers. There were no Panthers at Prokhorovka. Tigers, of course, and of course plenty of Stugs and other support vehicles. The Soviets were talking about tons and tons of T-34Cs. Now, technically, these would be ideal. These are the ones with a slightly hexagonal shaped turret. These are the 1943 ones that had the 2 round hatches. When they both opened up, the Germans thought the tank looked like Mickey Mouse, so they would kind of call it that. I don't have a whole fleet of these, but it's fine. I've got tons of T-34s. In a perfect world, I would put about 50 of these exact tanks, on the table, but that's okay. Pretty much if anyone at the club has a mid-war Mark IV, a Stug, a T-34-76, no 85s, not even close. Those don't come out until at least early 1944. And, other stuff. Su-76s, of course, are always welcome because they're friggin' everywhere. And T-70s. I need a crap ton of T-70s or anything that can pass as a T-70. By that I mean T-60s or T-50s would also be fine. This is the T-70. Interesting tank. The turret is not even on the center line of the vehicle. But hey, 1/3 of the Soviet tanks in mid-1943 were this model. They were not the T-34. There were also a few KVs and even a few, believe it or not, Churchills. The 36th Independent Guards Heavy Tank Regiment, attached to 18th Tank Corps, specifically 118th Tank Brigade. They sort of found a wedge between SS Leibstandarte and SS Totenkopf at the northern shoulder of the battle, just short of the Passau River, and that is where we are going to be focusing our table game on. 2 Saturdays from now. Because that's where the Churchills were. And we want to have the Churchills in there because it's fun. Okay, we had Valentines at the Panera game. We had Stewarts and Lees at the Cherkaskoye game. And we're going to have Churchills at the Prokhorovka game. So there's a little bit of Lend-Lease in all 3 major games. My Panzer Leader game at Verkopenie sadly has Nothing special on the Soviet side. It is straight out meat and potatoes, Soviet First Tank Army. They weren't guards yet. They don't pick that up until February of 44. For reasons that defy explanation, Katakov clearly had the best tank army the Soviets ever had. He did command the very, 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 very first Guards Tank Brigade way back in October of 41. Why they made him wait to have his tank army upgraded, I don't know, but they did let him keep the number, so he commanded 1st Guards Tank Army, but they weren't technically first yet, at Verkopenie on the southern shoulder of Kursk. So it makes me sad, because he's my favorite general, or my favorite Soviet general. Alright, let's see if these numbers are ready to come off the paper yet. Yes, they are. They jumped off. They are ready to go. They are not even kidding around here. Actually, I don't like it there. Now I'm just being fussy. It did go on there perfectly, but now I'm going to fuss with it because I don't like where I chose to put it. So I'm inviting disaster here. But the miniature forgave me, and we now have it in a much better spot. Keep forgetting to take off my manual focus. Okay, I will... Ooh, it didn't forgive me. Ah! Oh, frig me to tears. Okay, we're gonna move it again. Damn it. Tempting fate here, guys. Pray for me. I think I got away with that. Where am I going to put this? I guess I will put it back where that's not a great place for it, but the same side on the other side of the vehicle's got some details in the way. I'm going to have to put it on that little frontal oblique part after all. Damn it. It looks a little silly there. So what I'll do is I'll push it down and back as far as I can to minimize that effect of how goofy it looks. Another reason I'm not a huge fan of that placement is that's going to be one of those finger points where a lot of people are probably going to grab the miniature. So I'm really going to have to plaster the matte varnish on there to make sure that that number doesn't come off there. So where I wanted to put it was right here along the back running board, but as you can see, when you flip the miniature over, you've got something in the way that's blocking it on the other side. Of course, the smart thing to do would probably be just don't put the damn number on the other side, but come on now, you know I'm not going to do that. I love my little tactical numbers. Okay, outside of matte varnish, this vehicle is done. She's got national markings and tactical numbers on either side for 15 mil. this is a 28 mil, there would be like a Wehrmacht registry number up there, basically like a German license plate. There on the front, you'd have a flak battalion marking on the back. You'd have some sort of number denoting either it's Flak Panzer Abteilung or whatever the hell. You'd have all kinds of different numbers on here. Maybe a Panzer Group number or an SS number, but it's fine the way it is. Also, I tend not to get too deep into like divisional or regiment markings because that starts to limit the utility of the miniature. You start to limit the battles that you can use it in. Alright, so we'll let those dry so that they are nice and... Oh, it looks like this other one will be simpler. Yeah, I can put it in the same place on both sides and it won't give me a problem. Alright, so that's going to be number 118. One down, one more to go. Then it's going to be time for some leftover lo mein. Chinese food always tastes better on the second day. Okay, those are now both on there. Both of these half tracks, again, outside of a dab of matte varnish on top of these decals, these guys are now complete. So what I will do to celebrate that fact is take Mark's original crewman that was broken out of the miniature before I repainted it, because I didn't want to repaint the guy. The guy looked fine to me. And I will put him back where he was. Here you go, dude. You got your car back from the dealer. She's been all freshly detailed. She's ready to go. And I basically just really quick super glue him back in place. Oh no. I got a speck of super glue on my fingers there. Again, there will be some matte varnish on those tactical numbers and national markings there. So that shine will be quickly dispatched. It also helps reinforce the decal and keep it in place. Make sure it doesn't peel off or flake off or anything like that. This guy's also ready to go. I did have a chip in the gunner's seat. I don't know exactly when that happened. It didn't come to me that way. I clearly broke that at one point. I'm just going to leave it. It's fine. And yeah, these guys are ready to go. These SU-100s. Happy with them. I will go back and put in like headlights, taillights on some of the stuff. There's a few, like here, there's a saw and a little bit of a hammer there on the side of the SU-100. I'll paint those. So these guys, I shouldn't say that they're 100% done, but they're like 99% done. I don't do those super detailed parts of the painting until the very end. And the reason is you do it, if you do it at the start when you're doing all the other colors, you wind up losing that detail in the pin wash and the dry brushing, and then you have to go back and reinforce them anyway. So I do the details down to a certain level, and then I blast the tank with the pin wash and the pin wash and the dry brush, and then I go back in there and I pick out the really small details at a later time. Otherwise, you wind up just doing it twice. And again, there's a fair amount of engineering tools to do on these guys. I'll see if I can get them in focus. Great detail on these 3D prints. You can see a fair amount of engineering equipment there. Pliers, shovels, pickaxes, all kinds of stuff. That's going to have to get painted up. And then again, I got to figure out what I'm going to do on the left-hand turret face of those for the national markings. I've got the beginnings of a plan. I think I know how I'm going to handle that. The Flag 38 looks great. Nice job from what you received. Cool, thanks very much. Frank me, right? Politics, is that not always the story of the USSR? Absolutely. All right, guys, so we have now been up for, well, not quite 2 hours. But I'm pretty sure that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thanks very much for hanging out with us while we do a little bit of hobby. I say us. Well, yeah, us. More than I have been doing some hobby. Ooh, I did use a heat gun and straighten out these gun barrels. These gun barrels were a little bent, and Blair told me how to fix them. I didn't really listen because I thought they were okay. And they were okay. Then I painted them, and then they started to bend a little, and now I painted them, so I didn't want to put them in warm water because I was afraid the paint would come off. It's just acrylic. It's not even really terribly waterproof. So instead I used a little heat gun that I borrowed from my girlfriend, and it worked fine. Within like 45 seconds, the gun barrel was just pliable enough where I could bend it so that it was straight, and it's held that shape since. So that's the last piece of that that little drama there. But there's a fair amount of detail left to go on these. I'll see if I have any of the 50 weight decals. I may have some of those left over. So Germans and also Americans as well sometimes put a number, usually on the front right fender, that denotes the weight of the vehicle. So this Leopard 2 from 6 years ago. If you zoom in super hard, you will eventually see a 60 there. That's an engineering weight. That's so that the engineers, right before the tank goes over a bridge, the engineers knows what the tank weighs, and if their bridge is rated to carry that vehicle. So again, these are Leopard 1 chassis. I think this would rate about 50 or so. I'll see what I have in my spare decals bag, or I'll just leave it off. I don't think it's super detailed with it. But just little things that might pop up later on these guys. Because I love those details. But right now, the only killer thing is I gotta figure out what to do with those national markings on the right front turret face there. All right, cool. So, yep, thanks very much, Rasmus. Thanks very much, Jen. Thanks again, Mark and John, for coming out. Thanks, everybody who came out. We had a pretty good audience today. Definitely appreciate it. And, yeah, keep an eye out for number one, Bill is going to be doing his Fort Donaldson tour on Sunday. So again, I'm taking Sunday off. I've got a shit ton of other work to do to get ready for this huge Kursk and Sicily blitz that's going to pretty much last through all of July and into August, in fact. So keep an eye out for that, for Bill's content coming out on Sunday. And then again, I am going to be big time rolling out hella content for first Kursk and then Sicily, and then back to a little bit of Kursk, not really Kursk aftermath, Operation Kutuzov and Rumyantsev. So that goes into August of 43. It was part of the Battle of Kursk. Most German and English historians tend not to include that. They are wrong. You do have to include that as part of the Soviet battle plan for the Battle of Kursk. So that's why we're definitely going to include it. And the only kind of case that people can make for not including that in the Battle of Kursk is that's when it starts to blur the line between what is a battle and what is a campaign. So, I mean, if they take that angle in their defense, not including those subsequent Soviet operations as part of the Battle of Kursk, then there's a little bit of a reasonable debate. But if you choose not to just include them just because they're Russian, now you're just being Now you're just being an ass. But anyway, that is going to be it for my tirade on that action. Yes, indeed, John. I will hopefully see you on Saturday. All right, guys. That is going to be where we leave it for today. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming out. As always, we super appreciate it. Kursk is one hell of a battle. A bucket that, absolutely. It was huge. We actually go through the numbers in the part 1 of the Cherkaskoye video. Keep an eye out for it. Where we take the total number of men involved in the complete show of Kursk, and we compare it to some other, air quote, big battles in history. And it's just absurd. It's like 7 times larger than Leipzig, largest battle of the Napoleonic Wars, double the size of the entire Normandy campaign, which goes into August of 1944. It's not just landing on the beaches. Even if you include the entire campaign of northern France, Canadians, Poles, Americans, Germans, the British, it's double all of that by an easy margin. It's 3 times the size of Okinawa, 3 times the size of the Battle of the Bulge, 15 times the size of Waterloo, 20 times the size of Gettysburg. It's absurd. It's a gigantic battle. It's measurably, provably, empirically the largest battle that's ever happened. It's not even up for debate. And as such, we're going to hit the 80th anniversary of that very, very hard. I've been working very, very hard on this content since the beginning of May. I feel like I've been preparing for the real Battle of Kursk. They were preparing for that battle since April. I've been preparing for it. Well, I was planning it in April. I was preparing for it in May and June, and now it's finally going to kick off in July. I feel like I'm fighting my own little personal Battle of Kursk to roll out all this content for you guys. So hopefully you guys like it. Definitely a huge amount of thanks for people that have supported me so far. That's going to be Piotr for helping me run some of these games. Definitely Mark. Definitely John for helping me play, or even just bringing tanks, miniatures I don't have, at least in the numbers required, for a true look at the scale of, definitely the Battle of Kursk. All right, guys, like I said, that's where we're going to leave it for today. We are rounds complete for another episode. This is Oriskany Gem with the SitRep Podcast. Tango Mike, as always, for watching, and we'll be in touch very soon. Thanks again, and take care.